I've talked to other spiritual leaders, and the question I pose to them is this. I say, look, for all intents and purposes, statistically speaking, materially, we are better off than we've ever been in human history. I mean, across the board, materially speaking, we're better off. We're more fed. We have better shelter. We, make more money. Life is objectively easier from a material sense, and yet anxiety's high, depression is high,
suicide's high,
suicide's going up. And what they tell me is they say what we're witnessing is a crisis in spirituality, in the sense that if you look at the polls, far less people today are religious and or spiritual than ever before. Do you agree with that? Do you think that's what we're seeing right now? That's the problem.
That's one element of it. The research I've looked at says that religion is shrinking and spirituality is growing, because most people are coming to realize that the religion is not taking away their anxiety, their angst, their fear. It's not giving them a sense of connection. And the other thing that's got to be looked at is the fact that everything that you just said sounds very good, sounds very utopian, but it inhibits the quest of the hero's journey. It leaves people feeling too satiated and too pacified to actually go become something, to get into the solving of a problem. In my lifetime, I've seen faxes come. I've seen cell phones come. I've seen the internet come. I've seen Martin Luther King have to fight like hell for equality. I've seen the Indians be treated worse than blacks and still be pushed to the fringes. I've seen John F. Kennedy get assassinated. I've seen multiple wars fought for no intelligent reason other than raping people of their own resources, such as oil and minerals and high-tech pursuits for things to be used in computers and space weaponry. And what I've seen is that this constant availability of entertainment and food is essentially, if you take a wolf that's a nomadic animal and you just keep throwing meat on the ground for it, the question I have is how many generations will it take before those wolves forget how to hunt and lose their fitness and aren't wolves anymore? So what I'm saying is we've created a bubble where we've pushed all of our wars into other countries and tortured them. We've created a bubble where people don't even know where food comes from anymore. Jamie Oliver's research was quite shocking. The British chef, I think I might have mentioned this to you guys before. You might know this, but he traveled around the world showing children flashcards that were a mix of common fruits, vegetables, and farm animals mixed with corporate symbols. And he found that 90% of 8 to 10-year-olds, somewhere 50 to 90% of 8 to 10-year-olds could not recognize common fruit, vegetables, and farm animals, but were able to recognize 100% of corporate symbols. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? It means we now have wolves that can't hunt. We now have people that in a crisis won't know how to find water, how to plant crops, what to do with them. And the technocracy is taking our seeds away, trying to tell us that we can't farm that way and that we can only buy food from them. 90% of the world's food supply comes from 6 major corporations, from a guy that's an ex-paratrooper. That's one of the most dangerous situations you could ever be in. People think they've got a lot of food, but what they've got a lot is not food. They've got a lot of the shells of food. They've got a lot of dead stuff that's processed, has almost no nutrient value, and doesn't deliver enough nutrients to cover the costs of energy and nutrition to run it from mouth to anus. So the more they eat and have the illusion of satiation, the hungrier they get inside, which then begins to break down their biochemistry, their hormonal system, their mental, emotional structures. And whenever the body's hungry for nutrients, it keeps giving them that hunger signal, because the satiety centers in the brain have been found to be triggered by not only nutrients, but the food groups of the common 5 flavors, such as salty, sweet, bitter, sour, pungent. So the average person only eats 8 to 12 foods their entire lifetime, and the average person only knows 10 to 12 exercises. So when you consider there's about 350,000 edible plants and about 1 million animal species and a myriad of exercises, it looks like the menu is big, but not only is the menu getting narrower and narrower, but what we're doing to nature is mirroring what we're doing to ourselves, and that is killing diversity. And whenever you kill diversity in nature, you decrease sustainability proportionately. And so we also now are having a huge problem with a cancel culture, and we have big corporations killing our freedom of speech. So the same thing that happens in nature when you get rid of diversity happens in the human psyche. And so what's happening is we're creating populations of people that aren't willing to hear opposing viewpoints and only want to have food and life and technology the way they've been programmed to believe it should be, but they don't realize that's how you take an intelligent species and turn them into slugs eating mush that don't know the difference and think that they're free and think that they have a lot. And that's also how you weaken, destabilize, and disempower people and control them. And then you keep creating fear strategies to make them conform, which is classic brainwashing. And the next thing you know, you have a technocracy. You have a world created by people like Microsoft and Google and Facebook. And those people think that because you're part of their system and you sign their agreement, they can exclude you at will. They can censor what you want to share. And so now what happens is we don't get a diversity of ideas that are challenging to our own belief systems. So we don't learn to think outside of the box. We don't learn to understand people. We don't learn to solve problems. We learn that if you don't like something, you simply eliminate it. Now, when you start doing that with military force, you easily bring yourself to a third world war, because there's not many countries out there that want to be canceled by our culture, and nor do we want to be canceled by theirs. But if you take what I've just said and say, now what happens if we all embrace spirituality? Then we say it's important to listen to the Koreans' ideas, wants, feelings, and needs, because they're human and they share the world with us. It's important to pay attention to what's happening to the African children and the Indian children that are being used as guinea pigs for vaccinations that haven't gone through proper testing so that they can keep rich people rich. When you grow spiritually, you realize that we all have common needs. And those needs begin with having healthy soils, clean water, air that is breathable, and managing the planet so that we're not overheating it, and having an education system that teaches people how to relate to each other, understand what reality is, not some digital reality. And then you have people that learn how to share, to get along and support each other, and wars become less likely. Sharing music becomes more likely, sharing cuisine, sharing ideas, sharing problem-solving abilities. Right now, we have such big problems that aren't being looked at that it was going to take all the genius scientists and all the genius farmers and all the genius chemists and all the greatest minds. But how do you find the people that have ideas that ultimately have to go against the mainstream, because it's the mainstream corporatocracy who's turned everybody into a profit center that's destroying the very planet? So the only way you can solve that problem is to have access to the geniuses that keep getting canceled because their ideas go against the corporatocracy and the controllers. So what we're doing is we're doing the same thing that the food system did to milk, which is homogenizing it and pasteurizing it. So we're being homogenized and pasteurized so that we're all like little people wearing the same shirts and the same clothes, going to the same Sunday school, which looks terribly like communism.